Welcome to Strongbrook Radio, leveling up with today's thought leaders. What you're about to hear are powerful insights, entertaining stories, and life-changing principles from some of the most innovative minds in the world today. This is Strongbrook Radio. All right, everybody. Well, welcome back. This is Steve and Michael Miller with Strongbrook Radio. So glad to have you here. And as always, we are here today talking to some of the most innovative minds in the world, individuals that had problems, found solutions, and are now here to talk to us about those specific solutions. And so I am so glad to be here with you today. If this is your first time tuning into Strongbrook Radio, let me just say a very, very warm welcome to you. And if this is your 10th time, 20th time, 100th time, let me say again, welcome to you as well. So glad to have you back. And as always, if you're liking what you're hearing, make sure that you're sharing with others. This is a wonderful piece of information that you can give to people for free on the Strongbrook app. And so if you are liking what you're hearing here at Strongbrook Radio, we definitely highly encourage you to share that with other people. It's free for them, free for you, and we all get to improve our minds and learn new things, learn the tips and tricks, things that can accelerate our progress and help us to accomplish our goals even that much faster. And I'll tell you, I am super excited for the person that we have here with us today. As always, we bring people that have overcome trial, overcome hardship. And the reality is we all face different trials, different hardships in our lives. One of the best things that I love about mentors and mentorship is I get to go to someone who's experienced something that I may be going through, or that maybe that I even want to go through. Maybe I want to learn about a certain thing or take a certain direction in life. And I can now go to a mentor, someone who has been there and done that, and seek ways to accelerate my process, seek ways to avoid maybe some of the pitfalls that otherwise could be in my way, and avoid those things and make even further progress in a faster way. So I've got a gentleman here on the radio show with me today. A gentleman by the name of Steve Earl. And I want to bring him on here in just a second, but I want to give him a proper introduction. Steve Earl is actually a gentleman that I've worked with for the past 8.5 years or so. He's celebrating his 25th wedding anniversary this month, so we got him at a good time. He's definitely a family man. He's a marathon runner, and we'll get into some details there. I'm not sure how many marathons he's run, but I do know that he has qualified and run in Boston at the Boston Marathon, which is huge. So really excited to talk to him a little bit more about that. He's been an entrepreneur his entire life, and he's never held a real job. And this is something that he is very, very proud of. In other words, he's never been beholden to somebody else. If you've ever felt like you've kind of been held back because you've been working a job that maybe you're not passionate about, or maybe it's just not you. It's not what you feel like you were called to do. Well, Steve Earl's been in this space of entrepreneurship his entire life, and he's got some great things to talk about with that as well. But he has been investing in single-family land and commercial and multifamily real estate, as well as in multiple businesses. I know that he is the principal broker, CEO, and president of Strongbrook and Strongbrook Realty. So it's really great to have you here on the radio show with us today, Steve Earl. Welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here. This is a great opportunity for me to address individuals who have downloaded the app and who are participating with us in this great adventure.
Awesome. We definitely appreciate you being here and taking time. I know you're extremely busy with all that you do, and we're really grateful that you have taken some time to be with us today here on the radio show. Before we jump into the really meat and potatoes of the content, do you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I have a number of quotes that I look at on a regular basis. One of my favorite quotes was actually sent to me by my grandfather. My grandfather passed away just a few years ago, one day shy of his 101st birthday. And this is a quote that I actually kept up on a bulletin board right above my desk for many years when I was starting one of my first businesses. And here the quote goes like this: "If an idea, I reasoned, were really a good one, there must be some way of realizing it. And that quote meant a lot to me. One, because it came from my grandfather, but two, because it really made a lot of sense to me. I've always had lots of ideas throughout my life and so on, and some of them were good ideas and some of them weren't so good ideas. But the ones that I felt like were good ideas were not necessarily always the easiest thing to try and go out and achieve. But this quote has always come to mind, and it has inspired me to not give up when I felt inspired that an idea was good and that I should be doing it and pursuing it and trying to find a way to realize it or find a way to make it happen. And so that has been one of my favorite quotes since actually it was about 1993 is when he sent that to me. I have one other quote that I'd love to share with you. This is one that I actually I'll go ahead and take credit for it. I can't take credit for the actual idea or concept, but it's something that I have repeated and something that I've kind of developed over the years. And it's this concept that the challenges a person face are directly proportional to the greatness let me say that again. The challenges a person faces are directly proportional to the greatness they have the ability to achieve. Meaning, if you have greatness in you, and the ideas and the different things that you are pursuing are truly great ideas, and you are destined to become a great person, your challenges will be directly proportional to that greatness. If you take a look at all of the great leaders in our history, Abe Lincoln and others, they faced enormous challenges in their efforts to become who they became, or to achieve what they achieved, or to build what they wanted to build.
Wow, I love that, Steve. Thank you so much. I want to get into these quotes just a little bit, because the first quote that you said is something I feel like I have interviewed a lot of very successful individuals, some of the top thought leaders in the world, individuals that have been working with us here at Strongbrook and in the mentoring network. And the one thing that I've come to realize is everybody without fail that I have interviewed, anybody that I've spoken with who is successful in business, has that underlying belief. It's kind of that well of water that they draw from, this idea that our thoughts, our ideas can be realized. They're not just some pipe dream. And, and just to go off of what you said, there's something that I've been saying for the last several years is this concept that I don't like this concept of the old American dream, because I think for a lot of people, it has stayed in this dream state. But when you take that dream and you actually bring it into reality, when you have concrete steps that you can do to achieve that, all of a sudden we realize that truly these ideas, these thoughts, can be realized. And I think for a lot of our listeners, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for the specific steps or the specific know-how of how do I take my thoughts and how do I make those realities? How do I change enough or become the kind of person I need to be so that all of a sudden I'm no longer playing this victim role, but I'm actually stepping into this space of success. So I really appreciate you sharing that first one. I think the second one is very much like unto it in that, we're going to face challenges, even though we have the idea and it can be achieved. We're going to face some challenges, right? I mean, I'm assuming you face some pretty serious challenges in your life. And as a matter of fact, I'd love if you don't mind maybe getting a little personal for a second. Can you talk to our listeners about maybe one of your greatest challenges that you've had to face in your life and how you were able to overcome that and what that's meant for you both in life and in business?
Sure. I'd be happy to do that. Throughout my business career, I've often wondered if all small business owners have encountered as great a challenges as I have. And,
sure.
And I think that is true. I believe that every single person who is pursuing something great is facing great challenges on a regular basis. I'd like to get even a little bit more personal than just a business challenge.
Sure.
If that's okay.
I'd love that.
I faced what I think is maybe one of a parent's greatest nightmares with their children. My wife and I, as you mentioned, we're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary this month.
Yeah.
And
congratulations, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been many years of great blessings, great opportunities, and so on. And just like business, a good marriage also has its challenges and so on, just in that relationship. But I'd like to share just a challenge that we had with one of our children growing up. I always thought that I was, a good dad, and that I was, doing all the right things and spending time with my kids and making sure that I was communicating with them and so on. I really felt like I knew my kids well and so on. Just to wake up one morning and realize that wasn't the case. So you also mentioned that I'm a runner, and the time that I find to run is early in the morning. I'm up at 4:45 and out the door by 5. And one morning I got up and I walked past my 14-year-old son's bedroom and noticed that the door was open. So I looked in and saw that nobody was in his bed. And I was like, oh, wow, where is he? So I checked around the house. I checked, on the couch. Maybe he fell asleep in front of the television or something the night before. Couldn't find him anywhere. And so I sent a text message to see if I could find him. And I didn't find him. And he didn't respond. And so I called and just got his voicemail. And I was, so obviously I delayed my run, and I was trying to figure out, what's going on. And then my phone rang, and it was my son. And so I picked it up and I'm like, hello. And what I very quickly realized is that my son had just, for lack of a better term, butt dialed me. And for the next 15 minutes, I got to listen to my son speaking to two other friends who were with him, driving around in my truck. And what's interesting about that is he was only 14. He didn't have a license.
Wow.
And so as he was driving around, I did not recognize the words coming out of my son. I'd never heard him swear ever before in his life. And for the next 15 minutes, I heard the F-bomb every other word. And I heard him tell his friends the lie that he was going to tell me when he got home, to try and, create an excuse for why he was gone and why he had taken my truck and so on. And in that moment, I realized that there was something going on with one of my children that was significant. And over the course of the next few weeks and months, I realized that my son was involved heavily in substance abuse and in theft and in all kinds of things that were just crazy, and I could not believe it.
Wow.
And long story short, it became a very significant issue. A short time later, he actually ran away from home. He, disappeared for a week. He tore the braces off of his teeth during this time while he was away. And as I searched for him that week, I found this web of so-called friends of his that was really a web of young men who were engaged in the same activities as he was. And it was incredible to see everything that was going on there. And in the end, we ended up sending him to a treatment facility, and he was gone for about 8 months, and he came back. He got right back into it, and for the next several years, that was a struggle. And I won't go into all of the details, but what I will tell you is there was a decision, a deciding moment in that experience that my wife and I went through. And it was, we finally came to the realization that we could not control our son. And the most valuable thing that we could do for him was to let him know that we loved him unconditionally and that he was welcome to come to us at any point in time when he got in too deep and when he was ready to turn his life around. Fortunately, that went on for about 5 years. And fortunately, about a year ago, that moment came when he came home and asked if he could move back in, and he was ready to change his life. And he had had a a life and death situation that created this change in him. And so we embraced that opportunity and welcomed him back into our home. We had never excluded him from our hearts or from our family activities, and always kept him close to us, as did our children. And he's come back to us, and he's now a full-time student enrolled in college, and he's a straight A student for that matter, and he's pursuing computer programming, and he's getting his life straightened out. And it's been awesome to see that return to I guess, humanity, so to speak. And as parents, we're super grateful. Here's my point, is that this was probably the greatest challenge that my wife and I have ever faced, business, personal, whatever the case may be. And what's interesting about this experience is that it drew my wife and I closer together. I do not believe that my wife and I would be as close as we are today were it not for this experience. It drew our family together, our other children. It brought us closer together. And were it not for my son and this experience, we would not be as close as a family. Now, there are two paths that we could have taken. There are many marriages that are ripped apart because of situations like this, and there are families that are completely destroyed because of it. And thankfully, because of some choices that my wife and I made, our family actually is stronger and closer and more bonded because of the experience. And so it has brought us a perspective and a closeness such that as a family, we are bigger, better, faster, stronger because of the experience. And in the end, as hard as it has been, we are very grateful for that experience.
I appreciate that, Steve. That's a tremendous story. And, one that, it rings very, I don't know. I mean, I've never experienced that, but as a father, I can only imagine. My oldest son right now is 12, and, my youngest son, my youngest child is 1.5, and I've got several in between. And I think of the pain and heartache that you must have faced and gone through. I think the biggest thing that I'm most curious about in this scenario for you, and obviously there's a lot of detail that you left out, and I'm sure a lot of, sleepless nights and crying in your pillow and all that kind of stuff that happened in between. Help me and our listeners understand, for you, what was your greatest takeaway, and what have you been able to take from this and apply now to other aspects of your life? Maybe not just your relationships with people or with your son, but also in other aspects of your life. What is one of the biggest things that you've learned and have been able to now apply?
I think one of the biggest things that I learned was the concept of perspective, that different people view different things very differently. As a father, up until this experience, I was fairly dogmatic in how I, governed my family, and there were certain routines and certain things that I felt like were super important, and there were different perspectives that I think I just discounted. And my son saw the world through very different lenses, so to speak. And I did not have or share his perspective. But as we spent countless hours talking together and working through this over the last 5 years, or during that 5-year period, I learned to be way more open to other points of views and other perspectives in terms of how people see the world and how happiness is found. And became much more open to being, I suppose, more tolerant, much more forgiving. As I used to, look at other parents, and when I would see other parents who had children with significant issues, I was quite judgmental and felt like, well, why don't you just do this or this or that? Just to realize that things are not always as they seem or appear. And my son taught me to have a much more open perspective that way. And I just have such a greater appreciation for different viewpoints and different beliefs, for that matter, and different lifestyles. And in the end, everybody's goal is to be happy in this life. Everybody is simply looking for happiness, and they're looking for a way to be able to get up in the morning, to be able to look forward to life and look forward to what it is that they're doing. And I learned that it is actually a very good thing that we are not all built the same, and that we have different interests, and that we have different objectives and different things that bring happiness into our lives. Now, having said that, I do believe that there are certain principles that are guidelines that are critical to finding happiness. But this perspective, it just opened up a whole new world and thought process to me.
Wow, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's what a great experience, if I can say it that way. You know, as trying as I'm sure as it was, there is so much to learn in all of these different trials that we face. And I definitely appreciate you sharing that with me and our listeners here. So you talked about happiness here. And so that's I think a perfect bridge and segue here to another question I wanted to ask you, because I believe a lot of people, and I know that I've gone through this too, where sometimes I will attach happiness or my happiness to maybe a specific outcome, or whether or not I have certain things, or, you know, and I think for a lot of us, we go through that where sometimes we attach our happiness to things that maybe we shouldn't be attaching our happiness to. So talk to us, or if you wouldn't mind, talk to us about what makes you happy and how you think that can also help us all in life.
Okay. You know, I truly believe that happiness is indeed a state of mind, regardless of our physical surroundings and regardless of our circumstances, whether we be super wealthy or whether we be struggling financially, whether our relationships are struggling and that kind of thing. Just getting back to my experience with my son, it was interesting. The week that he disappeared, you know, I had some clues as to where he might be. And so I went up into the foothills of where I live, looking for him. And as I was walking through the hills and literally at the foot of the mountains, although my situation was very dire and I was so concerned about, you know, my son and my family, what was going on, I remember just the serenity and the peacefulness of being up there, just looking at the beauty and just thinking, this is awesome. And, you know, I felt full. I felt at peace. And in my mind, that's although I don't have that in every moment of my life, that's the one thing that I do pursue, is this concept of, regardless of my circumstances, to be at peace in my own heart and in my own mind, and with myself. And as I pursue that, it doesn't matter, you know, what my situation is. It doesn't mean that I'm not always working towards, you know, my different goals and my hopes and dreams and that kind of a thing. But I feel like the epitome of happiness and success is being able to be happy in the present moment and not waiting for something to change before you find that peace of mind. And I believe that can be found in a number of different ways. But that to me is the concept of happiness and being at peace.
I appreciate that. So you said something there also as you were talking about happiness. You know, I think oftentimes we associate happiness with success, or success with happiness, and maybe those are interchangeable. So you talked about a little bit of happiness being a state of mind and choosing to experience joy or experience that happiness regardless of maybe what your circumstance might be. We're all looking for happiness, of course, but we're also all looking to feel like we are successful. And you've had a large measure of success in a number of different areas of life, professionally speaking, as well as, of course, your personal life. But speaking towards the business side of things, how do you define success?
For me, defining success from a business perspective is being in the process of building something. I'm not one to just manage. And I find success and happiness in growing an organization and in building it and in pursuing the opportunities. My last, I guess, 11 years of my career, if you want to call that, has been built around the industry of real estate. And it's interesting, in that industry, there's kind of two paths that you have to always be pursuing. One is managing the business at hand, your current transactions, and making sure that those are flowing and making sure that the closings are happening, and then making sure that your pipeline of new deals and transactions is constantly full. And then there's the second track of the opportunistic part of real estate. And that is when opportunities present themselves that you were not expecting, maybe a deal or a new relationship, and being able to recognize different opportunities as they come along, and then figuring out how to move forward with those. And success in my mind is when you can create a transaction where there's a win-win-win scenario, where your counterpart is winning in the transaction, whether they're selling or buying, and where you're winning, whether you're selling or buying, and whether the community around you is also winning. It's important to me that in the end, whatever transaction has happened, that the two parties who then go their separate ways have won, and that the surrounding, the peripheral has also won. Meaning, let's say that there's a property that's in terrible shape, and you come along and you see the opportunity, you talk to the owner of that property, and you strike a deal with them, and then you part ways. Well, what happens to that home, and what's the benefit derived by the neighbors, by the local businesses? What do you do to that property? Do you leave it in better condition? Meaning, do you go in and do you rehab it and fix it up, or do you let it be and you just put somebody who's willing to live in that property there, and nothing ever improves? And so, to me, the epitome of success is when all three of those parties have won.
I love that. So defining success as a triple win, I think that makes, for me anyway, that gives me a great perspective going into any transaction, not just real estate, obviously anything in life, period, where I want to succeed and have success. I want to make sure that the other person is winning. I want to make sure that I'm winning. I think so often we feel like there has to be a win-lose scenario, but I love that perspective that you're bringing here to the table, that everyone can win, and not just both parties involved, but the surrounding environment, really. I mean, the surrounding parties or people or community, whatever that might be. Like I think you put in the terms of the periphery, right? The whatever's surrounding that also benefits and wins from that specific transaction. What a great way to look at that.
Yeah, I would just add really quickly that I believe that there's too many people in the business world who are of the opinion or of the mindset or perspective that somebody has to lose in order for there to be a winner. Now, that's not to say, I know that in our society today, there's this concept where, when kids are playing basketball, that you don't even keep score because everybody's a winner. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the concept of a successful transaction is when all parties literally get what it is that they are trying to get out of the deal. And to an outside party, they may look at one of the parties as being, say, a loser in the transaction. But as long as each party is leaving that transaction feeling like they were treated fairly and squarely, that they left with what it was that they were trying to accomplish, and then that third party wins. Like that in my mind is the concept of the definition of success in business.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So I want to get a little more into your business side of things. You've been a very successful realtor, a very successful broker, a successful real estate investor, business owner, and I know you've done things outside of real estate as well. But how does, if we were just to focus on maybe the business owner and real estate side of things, how would someone go about becoming, maybe first of all, a successful realtor? And honestly, I believe that you could say business owner and realtor in the same sentence. It's that, it's an entrepreneur, right? And a realtor is an entrepreneur. They do own their own business and so on and so forth. So how would someone go about learning, what would you teach someone looking to become a successful realtor or successful entrepreneur? And what are some of the biggest things that they need to consider?
So back when I was starting my first businesses straight out of college, I read a book called The E-Myth, or The Entrepreneurial Myth. That was probably one of the most influential books that I've ever read, because what it taught me was this concept, was that there are two types of individuals in the work or the business world. There's the technician and there's the business owner. Now, technician is somebody who is really good at the technical aspect of something, of providing a service. So let's take painting for this purpose. So if you have a painter who's a really good painter, and they know all the ins and outs, they know how to apply the primers and the lacquers, and they know when to sand and when to caulk and when to finish and all of the different things. And so whenever they touch a job, it just turns out perfectly. Well, that person can be an absolutely great painter. But what happens oftentimes when they decide that, hey, you know what? I'm doing this painting thing, and I'm seeing the owner of this company do so well. I'm going to go start my own painting company. So they go out, and here's the reality: 9 times out of 10, that individual is going to fail. And why is that? It's because they were a fantastic technician. They knew how to paint, but they didn't know the ins and outs of how to actually run a business. The concept of working on a business instead of in a business. As a technician, they had been working in the business for however many years that they were doing that. And they didn't even understand the concept of working on a business. They didn't understand the concept of cash flow, the concept of accounts receivable, the concept of keeping the pipeline full, the concept of training and hiring and everything that comes along with running a business, customer satisfaction, all of those types of things. And so before they know it, they're back working for their old boss or for somebody else again, because they couldn't make it happen. So the question becomes, well, why is that the case? Like what makes the difference between a technician and a business owner? And it's this, is that most business owners start out as technicians. They learn the trade of something, whether it be real estate or painting or carpet cleaning or whatever it is that they're doing. And then they make that transition in wanting to become an entrepreneur and wanting to own their own business. And the way that a person learns those skills is you can learn from books, you can learn from going to seminars. Sometimes it's natural. People kind of naturally know some of these things. But you have to work on your business. When I got into the real estate industry and became a real estate agent, it was really interesting. 2 days a week, I chose to stay late and work on my business. And on a number of occasions, I had some agents come to me and say, well, what are you doing late here tonight? And I would tell them, well, I'm working on my business. And they would say, well, what does that even mean? It's like, they're like, I don't even know what that concept means. And really what it boils down to is a concept of working on your marketing plan, creating your processes and your systems such that in the end, your ultimate goal should be that your business functions just as well or not better if you were not in the picture. Like if you have that as the ultimate goal and you're constantly putting in those processes and systems and you're working on your business in a very consistent, logical way, you'll accomplish that goal, and you will have an actual business. And you'll have something that's called equity in that business, where that equity in that business could be transferred to someone else. And so that's one of the principal concepts or ideas that I feel like is crucial to somebody who's getting into business is learning about those principles of working on your business and not just in it.
I love that. And it's interesting, for I think almost every entrepreneur that I know, you've got to play both hats for a while, right? I mean, usually when you're just starting off, you are going to be technician and you are going to be doing a lot of the day to day. But you also have to get outside the box. You have to do what most people won't do. You have to become a 3%er, as some people call it, and work those later hours, like you said, working on the business, developing those systems and processes. That's fantastic advice for all of us, I think. And one of the firm beliefs that we have here at Strongbrook is that everyone's got genius. Everybody has massive talents and abilities that if they could hone those and get those out to the world would be a much better place. And so it's this idea of, yes, you're going to become amazing at what you do, maybe even the best at what you do, being a technician in it. But then if you really want to grow that and bring that out to the world, you got to be working on your business as well, right? I love that concept. Thanks for sharing that.
You bet.
So just wrapping up here, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for everything that you've been sharing with us. I think this has been super valuable and something that, hopefully our listeners had their pens and papers and they've been able to really jot down a lot of notes. We call those writer downers. If you've heard something today that you want to implement, don't let it just fly away. Write it down and start implementing it right now in your own life, in your own business, and you'll start to see even greater success. Steve, what else would you like to, what is maybe one final thought that you'd like for our listeners to take home and remember from you today?
I would probably say this, that you don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't. That if you have a dream and you want to pursue it, that you pursue it, that you don't wait, that you start now, that you start today. There are so many people who have so many regrets because they procrastinated and they didn't take advantage of the opportunities in front of them. They didn't take advantage of the time when they were, when they had the energy and they had the wherewithal to pursue their dreams. Don't let, the fear of not having, sufficient resources, stop you from doing something. Don't let the fear of not having enough knowledge or information stop you from doing something. The greatest education you'll ever receive is the experience that you'll get as you do and pursue your dreams. And to remember that at the end of the day, this has been one of the things that I've learned along the way is this concept of not waiting, of not procrastinating, and of taking action, literally today, and to remember that ultimately, relationships are the most important thing that we get to, win during our time in business. At the end of the day, money, wealth, it's all fleeting. It comes, it goes. You can have millions of dollars today and something happens in the market and it's literally gone tomorrow. And there's different things that you can do to try and protect it and so on. But at the end of the day, sometimes things just happen and it's gone. But if you have developed skills and you've developed relationships, you can rebuild. Like if you have that, you never have to fear about tomorrow because you can have the confidence to know that if, the worst case scenario happens in the economy and all things fail, well, the reality is that you have gained, because of what you've done, the skill, the confidence, and the relationships to rebuild the same thing or something new starting tomorrow. And in my mind, that's one of the greatest benefits of being an entrepreneur and building something and going this route are those three things: the confidence, the skills, and the relationships. If you have those three things, doesn't matter what comes, because you can always do something new and you can always rebuild tomorrow. And when you have that, you can be absolutely fearless.
Awesome. Well, wise words from one of my mentors, Steve Earl. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. It has been a pleasure to have you here, and I can't say thank you enough. So This has been Steve Michael Miller here on Strongbrook Radio. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, this has been a wonderful show with Steve Earl, the President and CEO of the Strongbrook Group, as well as principal broker of Strongbrook Realty. Such an amazing man, amazing entrepreneur, and mentor to many. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've liked what you heard, again, please share this. Share the app with anybody, whether they have got an Android phone or an Apple phone. It can be found on all platforms. Have them search for Strongbrook in their App Store and Google Play, and give the free gift to them, especially during the times in their lives when they need it most. They need to have a resource to go to. And this is such a phenomenal resource for them. So we'd love to have you on again. We love that you come here and that you spend time with us every single week. Thank you so much for listening in and tuning in, and take these things and apply them. Go out and don't just sit here and listen, but take these things that you've learned, that you've written down, and begin to apply them immediately. Again, thank you so much. Steve Michael Miller with Strongbrook Radio. We'll talk to you next time.